Hello, welcome to the Sunday, January 24th, 2021 online meeting of the Natural Right Sangha. The online meetings, of course, are necessary because we have members all over the world, and it's the one way we can meet sort of together each week. Let's begin with our meditation. And please set your timer for however many minutes you wish. By now, you're very likely familiar with how we do this. You set your timer, you meditate, and when it goes off, you restart the Sangha meeting on your screen. So sitting up straight, relaxing, sitting straight, but not in a fashion that hurts you or tenses muscles too much or anything. Preferably shutting your eyes to avoid distractions. Hopefully you're in a quiet environment somewhere. So set your timer, focusing on just letting thoughts go, focusing if on anything, just on the inhalation and exhalation. Probably as it passes the tip of your nose. There are other ways, but that's the way I prefer. So here we go. Let's begin. Well, welcome back. As you see, it is dark out outside. It's pre-sunrise as we do this. And in front of me, I have a big list. It might be hard to see in this light, but this is a big list of topics. And these are all from Robert Wolf's website, and they're all a list of the monograms that he has done about ajata. Ajata is the last step in the intellectual, spiritual path. God, don't go there too early. It'll drive you nuts, which might be what happened to me. But Robert Wolf, of course, is one of my favorite people. As far as he's the real deal. He's not trying to use spirituality to get drugs, sex, fame, power, money at all. He's the real thing. And a great guy. He's in his 80s now and written some great books. Another one of my favorite people who I very much miss not being able to see is in India or Europe. I'm not even sure where right now. Normally he'd be in Europe teaching in Tiruvannamalai in southern India, getting ready to go back to his ashram in northern India for February satsangs. But with COVID and everything, that's not happening for him. And that's Swami Atmananda Udasin of the Jatananda Ashram. Those are two people I can recommend wholeheartedly as being sincere, excellent spiritual teachers. And I'd recommend them to anybody. But recommending to anybody can be dangerous too, because not everybody's ready for one type of teacher. Some people prefer one style or one another, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're talking today from the website, from the Natural Right Sangha website, and we have a page that's called Practices, Pointers, and Possibilities. And of course, that would be anathema to some people who say all practice is unnecessary. But we've talked about this before. That's bull honkies. Practices are necessary until they're not. And every great religious teacher has maintained so, just in the way they are. Buddha gave practices, Ramana Maharshi gave practices, Jesus gave practices, everybody gave practices, Mohammed certainly gave practices. And even realizing that these doings were on one level not um, essential in order for this mind body organism to really get it. They're essential as part of what goes on. And so, anybody that says, oh, you don't need to do anything, all practices are unnecessary, avoid these people like the plague. Like the plague. They are totally wrong. As wrong as anything can be on this plane, where you could also argue that there is no right or wrong. But so on our webpage, we talk about meditation and abidance. And that's where, at first, in meditation, we're trying to get something. We think we or I am missing something and we want it and it's out there. So I want to be more at peace. I want to be more mindful. I want to be less stressed. I want to be enlightened so the world doesn't bother me anymore, or whatever it is. We want something, and meditation is part of our way of getting that thing. Later on, when the masters talk about meditation, they're talking about more of an abidance, more of being at one with what is and just being rather than fighting for something or in a quest for something. We talk about Shravana, Manana, and Nidhivasana. And we talk about the four immeasurables and reciting them for all and for we. And we'll come to those again as we go down the page. I'm going to follow it in order so it's easy for you to keep up with too. Yeah, so when you go back to the web page, you can say, oh yeah, Mark was talking about this and this and this. So on that page, we ask you to examine opposites, opposite feelings, opposite concepts, shame and pride, guilt and innocence, love and hate. And we ask you to look at those and to go, okay, are there really two, or is there really only all that is? That's a huge one. And I could spend a whole hour talking about that, but I won't. Let's move on. If would like specifics on that or more information or more discussion, please let me know at mark@naturalrightsangha.org. The next is take the time to examine Ananda. Well, Ananda is supposed to mean bliss. And people think of bliss like, wow, man, yeah, a drug high or going down the cobblestones, feeling groovy with a big smile on your face, dancing or whatever. That's not what they mean by Ananda. That peace, which is a better translation, is ultimate peace or peace of mind or peace from mind, as some people like to say it. That ultimate peace from mind, which is when the mind is properly placed as a tool and not as the leader of you, the mind body you. That peace that Jesus called the peace that surpasses all understanding, and Ramesh Balsekar called Sukha Shanti, the absolute peace, the divine peace, the peace that is beyond a so-called peace of or from Maya or Samsara or Lila. which is the dualistic world. Examine this concept. Just look at it. What is that? Hopefully, we come to this in our mindfulness meditations to start. We all know what this is. We wouldn't be listening to this if we didn't know what Ananda was. On some level, you would not be here. And you know what? We'd like to be with that all the time. That's why I really believe that's why we're all here. Yes. And in fact, the the true essence of you never leaves that. The next one is to commune with nature in some way every day, even if it's only shutting the eyes and taking a long, slow breath, remembering a favorite place in the outdoors. Do that. Be outside and take a deep breath. Take a walk in the park, in the woods. Take a walk at dusk or dawn when, even if you're in a more urban environment, it's more peaceful. Things aren't moving yet. The noises aren't happening. The traffic's not going on. Watch a squirrel, watch a chipmunk, watch a raccoon, look at the deer, whatever's there. Hopefully, don't meet a tiger or a lion or a bear along the way. It's hungry. Don't step on a bad snake, but you know what I mean. Shravana Manana Nidinasana. Engage in listening and reading the words of true spiritual masters. Reflect and meditate upon these words, all with the goal of becoming one with the convictions arrived at. Okay? In other words, you abide with the teachings of the true spiritual masters. Once you're abiding with the teachings of the true spiritual masters, by the way, I totally believe that you would totally be living in harmony with the precepts. I can't imagine a true spiritual master ever doing a thing against the precepts. It's almost it's unimaginable. Which is why we have the precepts to begin with. It's to point us on that path. We live that way, we're living pretty darn well, whether we're a so-called sage or not. Next on that page on the website is to beware spiritual teachers. Do not take the words of anyone without checking them out for yourself. Don't believe anything anybody says without checking it out for yourself. And every true spiritual teacher will tell you exactly that. If it doesn't work for you, don't believe it. It has to be true for you because the truth is true for everyone. And if it's false, then it's not true for everyone. That's one reason. But also, every spiritual teacher, too, realizes that people have different ways of getting there. And we'll talk about that coming up. But we all have different aptitudes, preferences. Certain people love the way of karma yoga and service. They love to be of service to people and to go to Mother Teresa's places in Calcutta and work with the homeless and the sick and the poor and do things for them. They love this sort of thing. Other people love to go inside their heads, is the way they look at it at first. To go inside the path of Yan, some people say, to go inside and to to find out that truth, and then everything is known. Other people prefer to devote themselves to a deity. Okay. And this is the path of bhakti. And the Hare Krishnas are a great example of this. Devotional orders in the Christian faiths are great examples of this. There are many Buddhists who meditate upon the Buddha image or something like this rather than upon the Buddhist teachings. This would be a form of bhakti. Now, don't listen to titles, reputations, what everybody says. Figure it out for yourself that this person's real or not. And you might not agree with everybody, and that's okay. This is for you. It's for you until you realize you are all. And once you realize that, then you are nothing at the same time. Now, another thing we have on this page is to understand that awakenings and power by themselves mean nothing. And that's really true. I can read your mind. I can heal you. I can move that from there to there with mental power. Or whatever it is. These powers are meaningless as far as a person being enlightened or not. Some people are born with them. In some families, it's hereditary. Some people develop it through meditation. I believe I shared months ago the story of the Buddha walking along through the forest, and he came across a person in lotus position next to a river, and that person looked at the Buddha and said, "Hey, Buddha, look at me. I can do this." And they sat down and meditated real hard, and all of a sudden they raised up in the air and floated across the river and came down on the other side and said, "Hey, Buddha, can you do that?" And Buddha said, "I too can cross the river." And he went to the boatman and got in the boat and went across the river and got off on the other side and stood next to the guy and said, "How many years did it take you to develop that ability?" And the guy said, 7 or 11 or something. And the Buddha said, "Think if you had devoted that to knowing the self. Think if you had devoted that to coming to oneness rather than developing this power, which will only help you in this. In some way, maybe in this physical body, it'll impress people. But other than that, what's the real use?" And the person got it. Okay, but that's true for all the powers. Powers are a detour. You can come to them in the path. Many people do. They come to where they start to have these intuitive abilities, at least that, hey, so and so's. I haven't talked to so and so for a while. The phone rings and it's them, or they start to guess that, hey, let's sit somewhere else, and then the table falls over where they would have sat in a restaurant or whatever it is. That's natural. Just let it be. Don't chase it. Don't go for more, because many people who go for these powers, they become the ones who go after sex, drugs, fame, power, and money by using these powers. They're as enlightened as a politician, the normal politician. They're as enlightened as the local mob boss. They're enlightened as um, I don't want to give too many examples. I don't want to hurt people's feelings, but as my one of my sergeants in the army was, you know, don't believe powers. Shakti looking at you and seeming very powerful, and you feel this energy coming from them. Oh, they must be great. No, you can develop that. So again, All three paths work. Jnana works, bhakti works, karma works. They're all good. People have made it by singing, dancing, meditating, prayer, chanting, selfless work for the poor, devoting themselves to their deity, Krishna or Jesus or whoever it is. And also, they've made it through the path of knowledge. I always enjoyed mantras myself. It helped me to stay focused. Many people do parts of all three, but we have a main preference. Again, questions or things to discuss regarding any of this, please send a message to me at mark@naturalsangha.org. And now let's move to the way that we conclude every meeting with the four immeasurables. So first we will do for we. Okay, so please repeat. May we have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May we never be separate from the happiness that is free of sorrow. May we reside in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion. Next, we'll do it for all. May all have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all never be separate from the happiness that is free of sorrow. May all reside in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion. Have a great week. Blessings. Good luck in endeavoring to keep the precepts.